Come on in the room. Come on in the room. How many of you know what it means to love? I know we're in the love month. It's Black History Month. It's such a special month. But how many of you know what it means to love? What has love been for you? What has love given you? How has love hurt you? What are you talking about? Love don't hurt, it shouldn't, but sometimes it does. So we're here to talk to you tonight. It's Therapy Tuesday, y'all. Therapy Tuesday. I am glad to be here with you on tonight. Love. Man, that's such a strong word. It's a four-letter word. Some people take it for granted. Some people don't even understand the meaning, but what does it mean to you? What does it mean to love somebody when you're just all engulfed, whether it be with your spouse, with your children, with God? What does it mean to love to you? Man, have you ever been heartbroken by love? You were so deep in love. What did that love do to you? I'm telling you, we got some powerful tips for you tonight. Loving someone to death, maneuvering through the love, pain, triumphs, and heartaches. I mean, if that's you in the chat, you can say, yeah, I've been heartbroken. I've been heartache. You might have been the one that received, or you might have been the one giving it. You know, some of us have been on both sides of the spectrum in our life, whether it be from a relationship, losing a parent, losing a loved one, losing someone close, maybe losing a job. That loss hurts. You know, when you love something, you was passionate about something. You know, when you gave it your all and you loved it, and it was like the next breath and you lost it all. Well, I'm here to tell you we got some tips for you on tonight. Welcome to Love and Faith Restoration Church International here in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm the pastor, A.R. Garrison. And once a month on a Tuesday, normally the second Tuesday of the month, we do what we call Therapy Tuesdays, where we want you to bring your shattered pieces to a place of wholeness. Because we got tools, we got a box. I'm telling you, we got everything that you need here at LFRCI. But I'm telling you, she's not a guest. She's family. This is her home too. What she's gonna bring you tonight, I'm telling you, is gonna help you get through. I know this was the month of Valentine's Day. You know, we got to get to that place where we love that special someone or those people in our lives every day instead of just one day. You know, so many times we get conditioned on celebrating that one day, spending all this money, but why can't you do it year round? Because that action of year round is better than one day. You know, it's appreciated, but when you can just make it a routine, when you can make it your lifestyle. You know, one thing we try to do in the kingdom is make it our lifestyle and live this thing. So, you know, one thing about this is, how can you make it a part of your identity? So love, what does it mean to love? If you've been in that love circle, if you've been in that love cycle, if you've been on the downtrend of love, this is the segment for you. So tonight we have Miss Janae Ponder. She's going to be refreshing to you, give you some things to do. But let me give you a little bit about her. She's the boss mom, the wife, the CEO, the sister, the daughter. You know, she's the encourager. She's the counselor. She's your therapist. She is your neighbor across the street. She is the owner, the founder of LifeSpire Counseling Services in Deltona, Florida. They are a thriving agency all up and down the East Coast. They are doing some phenomenal things in people's lives. They want to be in your home. If you need their services, reach out to them. We'll have all the information for you by the end of this segment. But Janae is here to give you some powerful things. You know, we do this every month. So also, let me say this. Thank you all that have been with us going on a year. Next month will be a whole year that we've done Therapy Tuesdays. And I'm so excited about the growth and where it's going. So let me first off thank you for being a part of this, but also being a part of what God has given me. You know, my 2 years as a pastor of this great church just passed this past weekend. And so I thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting, loving, just encouraging, and being here, because most of all, this is for you. One thing we believe at Love and Faith is you got to be spiritually sound, you got to be mentally sound, but your heart got to be sound. But mental health is a part of it. How can you love God with all your heart when your mind's not right? Because there's some triggers, there's some traumas, there's some things that we need to go through. And guess what? I got your therapist, and I'm going to give you Jesus, okay? So we got it all for you here at LFRCI. So y'all, as we bring this phenomenal mother, this woman to the stage to go deep about loving someone to death tonight, put some fire, give her some love in the chat as we bring Miss Janae Ponder. Janae, come on to the stage.
All right. So I'm happy to be back with you guys for Therapy Tuesday. As you said, this feels like home. I love doing this. I love talking about mental health. I like making it practical. I like you being empowered, feeling like you can leave using something. So as usual, stay present, take some notes. Let's have a really good discussion. I may ask some questions. Please put them in the chat. Don't leave me on here by myself. Participate. We're going to talk about loving someone to death, and that's really a play on words. What I decided to do, like I always do, try to approach some mental health perspectives from a different perspective. So, what I'm going to be looking at really is the loss of yourself and also the loss of others when you make the sacrifice and the brave decision to love. So, we're really going to be looking at love in relationship to loss. And then the triumph in all of this is how do we get through that? How do you get over the loss of love? How do you get over to losing someone due to death who you love dearly? So we're going to be coming from those angles. As always, please take care of yourself. If you get triggered, take a break. If you notice heart palpitations, sweaty palms, you feel like you're about to have a panic attack because of something I said that triggered you, pause and take care of yourself. Um, Remain engaged. Some of the objectives that I'm going to approach today is I want you to understand loss in relationships of yourself and of others. I want you to understand what closure is. We always talk about closure when we love something, we got to let it go. And what I've noticed with closure is sometimes we're looking for emotional validation, or our emotions are telling us what we need to do to get closure, but it ain't really what we're supposed to be doing. It's not moving us in the direction toward wellness. I'm going to be looking at how to love and lose using wisdom. That's something that the world doesn't teach us. How do you deal with a loss and keep your dignity intact? Manage your emotions. So I'm going to open up with a quote from me. Believe it or not, we are all statistics when it comes to love and loss. I always say this: the statistics are in, and one out of one of us will love and lose. In fact, they say if you don't like to run the risk of losing, then you really don't want to love. So, what am I saying? You really cannot love and not endure loss. But somehow, in the back of our minds, we think we can fall in love or be attached to things and never have to deal with a goodbye or the pain of the goodbye. So, newsflash today: if you're loving, be prepared for a goodbye that's going to hurt. Have you ever lost yourself in a relationship? That is one my very first question that I want you guys to join in the chat with me. Have you ever lost yourself in a relationship? If you are listening to my voice and this is you, put me in the chat. Um, I have lost myself in relationships. Well, how do we get there? The good thing to know is you're not doing it on purpose. You're not doing it because you want to get yourself lost. It just happens. It happens subconsciously. But there's a progress and there's a process to kind of over attaching and losing yourself. Um, Repeatedly prioritizing your relationship over yourself. Everything slowly becomes all about your partner, what makes your partner happy. And the things that you love starts to become secondary to those things. And initially, it seems like what you're supposed to be doing, but long term, you really lose your sense of self and autonomy. We dread losing connection and approval. We were designed to be connected. So, quite naturally, we love that sense of connection and acceptance. And let's put approval on top of that. So we kind of are thrusted in the direction of making decisions that keep us connected to people, but not connected to ourselves. So we slowly move toward connecting to others and we slowly disconnect from ourselves, which is very dangerous. Then there's self sacrifice. Then we start giving up things that are connected to our identity. You stop eating at the restaurants you used to eat at. Some people give up their jobs. Some people start just doing very, I want to say, bizarre things to maintain those connections. You can lose yourself out of love and fear. So sometimes those behaviors are motivated by the fear of being alone, fear of being abandoned, fear of not ever getting married or not ever being able to have children, because especially as Christians, we're taught that you need to be married before you have children. So sometimes our fears will push us in relationships and in marriage just so we don't have to live with the shame of living outside of what our religion says we need and ought to be doing. Sometimes love. Sometimes we just love someone so much and we just naturally want to give that. Sometimes we have an unhealthy internalized understanding of love. Some myths about love, like love is everything. I hear that all the time. Love is enough. Or when you love someone, you make sacrifices, or you give up things when you love someone. And sometimes, if you're with a partner who's a bit manipulative or even mentally unwell, that partner might reinforce some of that. Like, if you love me, then you'll do this for me. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in depth when I get to that slide. Um, Love feels good. Did you know when you fall in love and you start spending time with people and you connect to them, those feel good hormones start to pump. And the more they pump, the more we want them. And the more we want them, the more we seek out that person. So, really, it is a neurological process happening, and we don't even know it. Our brain starts to build a neural pathway toward that person. And that's why we talked about grief last year. When you lose someone to grief, your brain still looks for that person, but there's no one to connect to. And we immediately go into a little internal crisis. Um, it is a gradual process. Like I said, you will not wake up completely head over heels for someone just like that. It takes a process, it's a gradual happening. It is driven by emotion. I always say we have three states of mind: we have emotion mind, reason mind, and wise mind. And usually, in the game of love and breakup and loss, we normally default to emotion mind, which is totally normal because we're human and we're designed to feel. But the tragedy in being governed by your emotions is you tend to make rash decisions based on your emotions. And I always say our emotional being is like a toddler. It needs instant gratification, wants to feel good fast. So a lot of the decision making is based on irrationality instead of reality. So we got to be careful with making decisions out of emotion. And then it's a subconscious thing when we lose ourselves. It just kind of happens. All right, so I want to talk about a healthy relationship. We can't talk about love and loss and not talk about relationships. We have to. And if we're going to talk about healthy relationships, then we know the opposite of what I'm describing is going to be an unhealthy relationship. So a healthy relationship has what we call reciprocity, giving and taking. So if you're only giving and the other person is not pouring back into you, you're not in a healthy relationship. Healthy relationships gives room for individuality. You can be yourself. You can be yourself authentically. Anytime you're in a relationship and someone has resentment toward you for being how you naturally show up, you may want to check the dynamic of that relationship. I don't know that it's so healthy. At the core of relationships is what we call unconditional positive regard, and it's absolute support and acceptance of a person, no matter what they say or do. How you naturally show up would not annoy or irritate someone who you're in a healthy dynamic with. Respect, someone who honors your values. I always say this: in a relationship, your insecurity won't be caused by your partner, but your security will be built up by your partner. So you want to make sure you're in a relationship with someone who cares just as much as about your well-being as you do. Authentic communication. You won't have to beat around the bush. You can mean what you say what you mean, and not say it mean. And then conflict resolution. This person is going to always want to work toward the goal of resolving conflict and moving forward, and not necessarily watching you suffer or trying to get even or trying to get revenge all the time. If you're in a relationship where there's a lot of revenge happening, you want to check the status of that relationship, and it's not as healthy as you think. Healthy relationships have a sense of collaboration. That's working together to meet a common goal. What is the common goal there? And if you're in a relationship and there's no common goal, you may want to check that relationship. Boundaries are expressed directly. You are free and safe to say what you need. You're free and safe to say where you need things to stop or start. There's no manipulation. If you are being manipulated, one word that the world is wearing out is gaslit. If you're being gaslit, if you feel like the person you with is a narcissist, you may want to check your relationship. And if you're in a healthy relationship, there are no assumptions. Like, you're not going to expect your partner just to know how you need to be loved and vice versa. There is an openness that kind of eradicates that sense of wanting to assume. And we assume usually when we're afraid to step on toes. So, in a healthy relationship, at your core, you're not afraid. You're going to be direct. Closeness is welcomed. Like, getting close won't seem like it's scary because you're in a secure bond. So closeness is a part of healthy relationships, and then vulnerability will actually strengthen that bond. The word vulnerability means wounded. So that means that if you're in a healthy relationship, you won't mind showing your wounds. You won't be embarrassed by that. Because it's such a safe and collaborative environment. So if you are in anything opposite of what I just described, you may want to check your relationship. And I do believe in the power of potential, especially when you get support and you're aware of what the problem is. So if you are in an unhealthy relationship, there's room for it to get better if you got the right tools in place. So, what makes loving and losing so painful? Let's talk about that. So I don't know if there's one direct answer, but if you think you know the answer, put it in the chat. What makes loving and losing so painful? Well, you kind of learn to live with something that becomes a part of your identity. And anytime you lose something that's a part of you, of course you're going to protest it. Of course it's going to feel off. Of course you're going to feel insecure, even. Of course, it's going to feel abnormal. So, it's a normal part of being human. Attaching to things that abruptly detach from you will cause you upset, trauma, and crisis. It's just normal. But I want to look at pain a little bit closer here. So there are two types of pain. You have chronic pain and then you have acute pain. So acute pain is that very short-lived pain. Put your hand on the stove, pull it back, and then it's gone. Maybe you stub your toe, you rub it, it throbs for a little bit, and then it's gone. But chronic pain is long lasting. Sometimes it persists, or sometimes it comes in waves. You'll have pain this day, it'll go away, it comes back another day, but over a long period of time, it continues to do that. So the problem with loving and losing is that loving or the pain caused by loss is chronic, it's long lasting. I'm going to explain that. So, when you deal with an acute pain, you get a signal to stop and change directions because you want to reduce harm. That's actually neurological. You stub your toe, you pull it back. You feel heat, you pull it back. Even babies do that. My little girls do that. Something's hot, ow, mommy, or they blow it because we want to reduce pain. But when you're dealing with a chronic internal pain, you can't do that. When you're dealing with heartbreak caused by loss, whether it be through grief or an abrupt separation, it there's no soothing that. You can't pull your heart back from that. In fact, it's really disheartening. So I'm going to talk about a psychological pain, aka a chronic pain. So a psychological pain is internal. You can't touch it. You can't soothe it. You can't change directions to escape it. You have to sit in it. You have to live with it. It is inside, meaning you can't touch it. So it's a culmination. It ignites your senses. It's a combination of your thoughts, your feelings, your bodily sensations, your urges, the things you can't touch. Your experiences are stored in what we call the hippocampus in your brain, which is your internal file cabinet. So the memories of this person are there. How it feels to lose them, and you can relive this pain with the slightest reminder. Songs will remind you of people, smells. I remember some of those old Bath and Body Works scents that I used to wear when I was in high school. When I smell it, it takes me back to a place because the brain has schemas in it that kind of keeps us familiar with the things that we've experienced. It's hard to avoid pain that is with you everywhere you go. So, what am I saying? The pain caused by loss you carry with you everywhere. You don't get to put that down. So if someone says, if I ask you right now, think of a time when your heart broke the worst. That memory is already right back in your mind. The pain is already right back fresh. So you really can't escape it. Anything can trigger it. But if you stub your toe, it's gone. And if you even think about childbirth, that's why women can have children over and over again because that pain goes away. And even when we try to recall it, it's kind of hard to remember it because it's really acute when you think about it. Acute pain we just really can't absorb and remember, but chronic pain you're always reminded of it. So with the pain that you got to live with, you need some real good tools to tolerate that. You need some help with that. And I want to also encourage you guys, stop judging yourself for how you deal with loss, the loss of loved ones due to death or the loss of breakups. I see so much judgment. Oh, I'm stupid for being this way, or I can't believe I'm crying, or I shouldn't be crying this much. I had a young lady come up to me 2 days ago who lost a grandmother, and she was apologizing for crying. She told me how much her grandmother meant to her. And I'm like, of course you would be crying. You just explained to me how important this person was. So stop judging yourself when you're dealing with this loss and you're reminded of the pain that you had to live through. So, I want to talk about what you can do when you're dealing with the overwhelming sense of heartbreak. Um, Research shows that healthy closure is very necessary when you're dealing with that kind of chronic pain that you can't soothe. And it is a process. So, you got to make sense of your loss. Loss is about two dynamics fighting together. It's a psychodynamic. So it is the reality you know or always knew fighting with this new reality without this person. And they're literally in the ring fist fighting if you need a visual. So you got to make sense of that. And you may say something like, you may use the affirmation, well, of course people pass away. I wasn't expecting it. It was a surprise, but it happens. And this is my time. And now I have to grieve. Now I have to deal with this chronic pain and this heartbreak, and I got to figure out how to make sense of it. I have to kind of get to a place of accepting the loss. And you can't allow your emotions, the emotion mind I was telling you about earlier, can't allow your emotions to tell you things that aren't true. Particularly with loss related to death, a lot of times we blame ourselves for people dying, especially if they had a chronic illness. Well, maybe I could have fed them more, or maybe if I would have stepped in more and made them take their medicine more. You start to do things like that, but the reality is they would have passed away anyway because death is inevitable. We just don't know when, we don't know how, we don't know where, but it is inevitable. But it's just hard for our emotions to make sense of that. And what we call those are cognitive distortions. We start to distort reality because we got to try to make it make sense for us. But you don't want to make it make sense to your emotions. You want to make it to make sense to reality using factual data. Understand what factually happened in the loss, whether it's by grief or a breakup. If you're dealing with a breakup, you don't want to blame yourself for someone cheating on you. If someone was dishonest and violated a relationship, and I see that a lot, and blaming yourself for someone having an affair or cheating. Simply is emotion mind stepping in, just trying to make sense of it, because your brain can't fathom that someone you love so much and had such an attachment with actually violated the relationship. But the reality is, it did, and you don't have to blame yourself for it. You can make sense for of it using facts. Okay, this person violated a relationship because of some reasons that I don't know yet. That is a fact. Reframe emotional conclusions. Your emotions are going to conjure up some of the worst scenarios, and it's going to cause you to fester in that loss. So, could you imagine having a heartbreak that you couldn't soothe, but now the stories that you keep telling yourself over and over and over as insult to injury? I call that an emotional lasagna. So now you got the first layer of the grief, but then now you got that sadness because of what you went through, because of the story that you're telling yourself, and then you're going to get to anger, and then eventually you might be moved to get revenge. And then we're going to talk about that a little bit later. um, be flexible, constructive with your interpretations. Allow the facts to change as you come into understanding why you're losing, or why you feel the way you feel in losing the relationship with a person. Be open to knowing that what you think about what happened will change. So, or what you know about what happens will change as you come into new data. So don't just get fixated on one story, because things always change. Make sure that information is constructive. So now I want to talk about how we try to survive loss and pain. And these are just some, I guess I would call it ineffective strategies that we kind of default to without having therapy or having a safe space to talk about how to process loss. We try to avoid. We will avoid, we will suppress, we distract ourselves, and sometimes we live in denial. And these are very dangerous. When you avoid and suppress, the problem is still there. Like the pain of the loss is still there. I just told you it's chronic, so it is going to come back up. And when it comes back up, you have to re-suppress it again and re-avoid it again. So it actually becomes exhausting. So you're constantly avoiding over and over again, and you're constantly suppressing over and over again. And distraction works for a brief period of time, but it still comes back up again. You got to re-distract yourself. And denial is especially dangerous because denial denies your pain. And when you deny your pain, you don't give yourself an opportunity to heal, to get a pain reliever. So it really exacerbates your pain. And what ends up actually happening when you don't deal with loss and pain head on, all you do is transfer the pain and loss into a different way. And I'll give you an example. So if you end up getting your heart broke due to a relationship, and you decide, your emotions tell you, don't date anymore, don't even get in any relationships, don't fall in love anymore because people die. So let's say you get those kind of perspectives. So you get to a place where you start to not want to attach to others, or you're really rigid with how you select people to date and get in close contact with. So now you have a hard time loving and connecting to people. But what you don't realize is now you've lost your ability to connect. So that's still loss and grief. So now that you've lost your ability to connect with people, what are the repercussions of that? Well, now you feel more lonely. Okay, so now you're feeling more lonely. Now you're still just transferring the pain and loss to something different. So it's really important not to use these unhealthy strategies to deal with loss and pain. You need some skills and some tools, and I'm going to talk about that. So some truth about loss, and we're going to talk about loss. I don't think probably in a way that you haven't considered. Loss is uncomfortable. It hurts. It feels abnormal. It feels like someone snatched the rug from under your feet. Loss is inevitable. We cannot live a life without loss of any kind. People lose their jobs, people lose relationships, people lose actual people to death. We lose time. I'm particularly very triggered by the loss of time. Like if I feel like something is wasting my time, that triggers me. It is inevitable, and we have to learn how to live with the things that we can't control in a healthy way. It is profoundly meaningful to lose. In fact, loss and pain teaches us a lot about what we need. Stop treating loss and pain like it's a disease. It is not a disease. It's perfectly normal to lose and be brokenhearted and be in pain. I know it's uncomfortable to sit in that pain, but I promise you it is totally survivable. It feels like it's not, but it is. It's not a problem to be solved. Pain and loss is not a problem to be solved. It is just a part of life. Learn how to live with pain and loss. Avoiding loss only creates more loss, just like that scenario that I just gave you. So lean in it, sit with it. It's okay to have pain because of loss. Now, there's a wisdom in pain. Pain comes to teach us. Pain teaches us a lot about ourselves. And I got to share this nugget with you guys. You ever wonder why people keep getting in the same type of toxic relationships? It's because they're using one of those ineffective approaches I talked about. They're either using avoidance, suppression, distraction, and denial to deal with pain and loss. So imagine doing those things and not really dealing with the loss and processing and learning from it, and you're acting like it doesn't exist. So when you act like pain doesn't exist, you don't have the tools and the solutions and the resources to not repeat that. So you will get in another relationship not having the lessons you need to pick a better partner. So really avoiding pain robs you of your ability to see what's best for you. So that's how people end up in the same type of relationships over and over and over. They haven't learned from their pain. So the wisdom in pain, it says we care where we hurt and we hurt where we care. So wherever you care, when there's a loss, you will be hurt. And wherever you hurt, um, and we hurt where we care. So wherever you're hurting, that's where your care lies. And you got to know that there's a pain message that you got to learn. Anytime you're in pain related to loss and relationships, I need you to figure out what that pain message is. What did that pain teach you? What are you learning from this experience? What are you taking away? Like we always say, there is no losing in love, there's only lessons in learning. So you're learning something. But when you're avoiding, suppressing, and you're in denial, you don't give yourself an opportunity to learn what that is. For instance, maybe if someone was unfaithful to you in a relationship, or maybe they betrayed you just by not being honest, or maybe they told you one thing and constantly switched it up. If you feel that pain is probably telling you that your values are to be with someone who's honest, to be with someone who's not going to cheat, to be with someone who's going to support you. And if you don't listen to what that pain is telling you, you're going to totally not pick the person that's honest and going to support you because you didn't learn the message from the pain. So there's a wisdom there. So lean into it. Of course, we can't talk about relationships and loss without talking about grief. So grief is the process of trying to accept a loss, and it comes with a myriad of emotions and experience that I could go on and on and on for days talking about. But grief comes from the meaning of the word grief is a French word that means a heavy burden. So it's a heavy burden. Denying your pain and grief can hinder your healing. It's kind of like that the now piece that I was talking about earlier. So what you need to do is validate your heavy burden. How do you validate your pain? You need to acknowledge it. Do you see that you're in pain? Let me just put this out there. A lot of times we don't like to talk about our pain because we're ashamed. This world just does not support being in pain with pride. People are just too ashamed to talk about their sadness. So now, not only are you guys suppressing pain and loss, but you start to oppress your emotions. Like you're sad because of your grief and loss, and you're suppressing the sadness. You're going around pretending like you're so happy and like everything's all great. Every time somebody asks you something, I'm fine, I'm great. But on the inside, you're really breaking down because you're not honest about this heavy burden that you're carrying. And I want to encourage you guys, start being honest about what's happening on the inside of you. You are the expert on your emotions, and it is your responsibility to be the moderator and tell us on the outside what's going on and, more importantly, what you need. And this is the time where you want to take care of yourself. This is not the time to pretend like everything's okay. Because here's the thing, when you pretend like you're okay, you're giving permission for no one else to come to your rescue because you look like everything is okay. And sometimes in these scenarios, you do need help. You need someone to tap in and help you. Like in wrestling, when they're doing like the tag team wrestling, you can tag team your partner to come in when you're overwhelmed or when you can't handle it. But when you're going around acting like it's not hurting, you don't get support. You don't get enough advocates in your corner. We can't learn the lessons of loss while running from it. So we got to face it head on. We got to deal with it. So here are my solutions. Recovery is possible. Recovery is always possible. So loss of the self. Here's some tools for recovery. Stop focusing on changing your partner. I always tell you guys we can't change people no matter what. We can never change people. People have to be willing to change themselves, or they have to get enough skills to start to change themselves. And a lot of times in intimate relationships, there's this thing where if I could just get this person to change, if I just get them to see what I see, then they will adjust. But the reality is they don't see life from your perspective. So the thing in you that wants them to change is not in them, that's motivating them to change. So be okay with accepting people where they are because you can't change them. Grow in self respect effectiveness. Self respect effectiveness says I move and I do things in a way where I respect myself. And a part of that is walking a middle path in between honoring your needs and the other person's needs. So you want to walk a middle path. Remember, relationships are about reciprocity. So if you are walking a middle path, you're in a reciprocal relationship, aka a healthy relationship. So it should not be one sided. Become self centered. I didn't say selfish. I said self centered. That means you're focusing on you. A lot of times, especially through media and songs, we're taught that love means focusing on the other person. But really, some of the best relationships have two partners that know themselves very well. Know thyself so you can heal thyself, and know thyself so you can be healthy. If you're healthy and two healthy people are coming to the table to be in a relationship, I think that's a good foundation for a healthy relationship. Self care. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about self care because everybody's talking about it, but it's powerful. It's really just being intentional about pouring into your own cup. And it goes beyond uh, how you dress your body or the things you're doing to groom yourself. It really boils down to lifestyle. How are you living your life in a way that enhances your wellness as opposed to hindering it? Increase your self esteem. Listen, buy a new outfit, buy a new pair of shoes, change your hair color, start taking better care of your skin, exfoliate, buy some good health products, buy you some Jergens and stop buying the cheap stuff. Get some good stuff and take care of yourself. Increase your outward image. Maybe you might start wearing a different color you haven't worn before. But be intentional about this. Express your wants, needs, and boundaries. And if you're unable to do that, then sit with yourself and figure out who you are and what you like and what you don't like and go from there. And therapy obviously will help. Pursue your personal goals. Stop pursuing the goals of your partner and pursue your own goals. Patterns of loving will not automatically disappear. So, what does that mean? This will require ongoing work. You will have to continue to work to be a better version of yourself in love, or you're going to fall in those same patterns of not leaning into your loss and pain and kind of going after the same people, same processes that have hurt you. And in therapy, get someone in the boat with you that's going to help you paddle to deal with some of these things so you're not doing it alone. So now I want to talk about recovery from the loss of others, and it could be due to death or relationship loss. Accept sadness and grief. Accept that heavy burden. It's okay to have a heavy burden after you've lost someone that you love. That is acceptable. That makes sense. Reframe your initial narratives. Now, when you first lose someone, emotions are going to be in the driver's seat, and some of those stories are going to be distorted, and that's normal. Initially, let it happen. However, once the dust settles and you're starting to process it a little bit more, push yourself to reframe your initial narratives. Try to enhance them. Try to find the magic in your circumstance instead of the tragic. Practice healthy closure. Make sense of what happened without blaming yourself or blaming others. Don't judge yourself. Don't demean yourself. Expand your perspectives to offer more compassion and forgiveness. And you know what forgiveness really means? Forgiveness means you're no longer consumed by trying to make the other person suffer because you suffered. And when you can stop doing what you were doing to get revenge and focus on yourself, that's really what forgiveness is about. I think that a lot of people shy away from forgiveness because it feels like you're allowing what happened to you to happen, or you are validating what the other person did to you. But really, at the core, forgiveness is about self care. It's not about the other person. In fact, you stop thinking about the other person so you can take better care of you. Exchange your desire for the other person to suffer with your focus on being on your own growth. So instead of that quote that they say, not forgiving someone is like drinking poison but expecting the other person to die. So when you forgive someone, what ends up happening is you're just watering your garden and you don't even care what's happening in the other person's garden. That is at the core of forgiveness. So forgiveness plus healthy narratives about what happened to you is going to set you up on a path to growing around the grief. And the reason why we're going to call it growing around the grief, because remember, it's chronic. Every time you remember that situation, the pain is going to come back. But as you mature and grow around it, it's not so intense because you're not telling yourself those really intense, dark scenarios anymore. And also get therapy for grief and loss of people. Get support. Again, you don't have to do it by your own on your own. So, as I always do, I leave you with some true or false. I want to know if you understood what I said today. So, if you want to participate with me and you're safe to do this, put T for true, F for false. The stories we tell ourselves about loss don't matter. They don't matter. Doesn't matter how you're talking about your loss. The loss of a person due to death, the loss of a relationship, it doesn't matter. Is that true or false? If it's true, put T. If it's false, put F. That is false. It is true. We definitely have to mind how we talk about our experiences. Remember, I used to always talk about stinking thinking. If your thinking stinks, your feelings are going to stink, and just everything's going to be terrible from there. I can love without loss. Is that true or false? That is false. Hey, when you love, you take the risk of losing. And you got to radically accept that. If you don't want to lose, then you don't want to love. True or false? Psychological pain is chronic with no escape. Is that true or false? That is true. It's chronic, it's never ending. The slightest experience can trigger it to come up again. All I need is closure. It doesn't matter what kind of closure. Is that true or false? That is false. You need healthy closure, not the closure your emotions say you need, not the closure that says get angry at other people because someone has passed away, or the closer that says cut everybody off because you're hurting because you lost someone, or the closure that says call them 10,000 times, try to get them to answer so you can repeat the same story over and over and over, hoping that the next time you hear it, you will actually feel comfort and why you're not with the person anymore. That's unhealthy closure. But the closure I'm talking about reframes the story. It gives you power over what happened. It focuses on forgiveness, and forgiveness is about you taking care of you and stop focusing on revenge of the other person. True or false? If I avoid pain and loss, I will feel much better. Is that true or false? It's actually false. If you avoid pain and loss, you're only going to transfer that loss to something else. So, where you started off losing a relationship, if you decide to avoid relationships, then now you're going to lose your ability to connect with others. So, it's just a never ending cycle. So, I am actually going to allow a mod to come back on now. And we're going to talk about some of my books, some of my projects, some of the things I have going on. I hope that something here that I shared with you today about love and loss resonates with you. And I guess I'll talk about my books a little bit here. So, some of the books I want to share, these books are actually like a little bit of a journal. I have a coloring book series called Coloring Books for the Soul, and they're about my experiences, things I've seen other women deal with, things I've grown up with. I have three that are already released, and a couple of more that are coming down the pike. But I have Girl Dad, which is a coloring book for Black dads and daughters, inspired by my own two daughters and my husband. And then I have, and it's on Amazon. And we know the benefit of coloring and being mindful and setting your attention on one thing at a time is very healing and calming. So these books will serve as twofold to get you to practice being more mindful, but also to get you to be creative and also to get you to spend time with your little ones. Then I have Fearless Queens for Black women. This coloring book comes with very brief affirmations at the top, along with, I guess, emotion evoking images to get women to think, to give themselves grace, and to empower women. My very last coloring book, which is my favorite one, which is if you know any Black therapists, this is a great gift for them. But it's called My Therapist is Black. And this coloring book is definitely a love letter to Black therapists to remind them to take care of themselves. In the pages, they'll be reminded to take a break, to drink water, remember their notes, and little things that only us Black therapists can kind of understand because of our experiences. And the very last bundle is my Fearless collection. All my clients that I work with at the core, it's fear. So I was like, you know what? We got to come up with a tool to help people help themselves overcome fear. So I have a 100 bold affirmations to help you overcome your fears book that has a companion journal. I always say that if words can hurt, then words can heal. So this book kind of gives you a step-by-step guide to how to overcome your fears by using the boldness and the power of words. You could take up to 2 years to actually get through the book. It's all about what's happening as you read, what's coming up. It was not designed to be a quick read. So if you need this, if you're dealing with fear, get the book. I got some positive feedback. I got to do a reading at the release 2 or 3 days ago, and people were very moved, and I got a lot of positive feedback. So um, maybe you might not be ready for traditional psychotherapy, but I truly believe in self help. So maybe not you don't want to come in the office, but if you are ready to change your life, um, 100 Bold Affirmations is the book for you. So, as always, I like to leave you with a few resources at the end of our dialogue. Remember 988 911 for crisis. You now have the text line 741 741. If you text the word home, you can get some support. Then you have the National Suicide Hotline. And then there's psychologytoday.com, where you can put in your insurance, your location, and narrow your therapist down to the issue that you're dealing with if you need therapy. So, we always like to end with questions, thoughts, or feedback. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you're going to take away something from our discussion tonight.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Janae, you was walking heavy tonight, girl. I said, man, well, you, whew. I felt like you were stepping on some toes. I felt my pinky toe get stepped on a little bit over here. But you said some good things. A couple of questions that I got um, while you were on was, especially with that loss, somebody asked, why is it so hard for me not to apologize for the pain I do feel, even though I caused it?
Well, I think it's the brain trying to make sense of it. Research shows that when we deal with loss, we need to make sense of it. And sometimes sense doesn't come immediately. The loss happens immediately, but the understanding of the loss sometimes takes time. So that is just you reaching for understanding. And it's important to know that that's normal and it will subside. But as time goes on, you'll find yourself, or you should find yourself, questioning why you're apologizing or what am I apologizing for? So you'll go from having the urge to apologize to, as time goes on, to I don't even know why I was apologizing. I've been there. So it's a process. That is the short answer. It is a process toward accepting the loss.
Okay. And also, before I go to our next question, if you're here on the live and you got a question and you feel comfortable enough to ask your question, put it in the chat. Janae will answer it. We want to be respectful of time, but we want all your questions answered, as well as if there's some information that you may didn't receive, didn't get, and you're like, hey, I want to know. Well, I just put the number and her website up there. So if there's something that you don't want to ask on the live, you can text it to that number on the screen, 386-400-3100, and you will get an answer back. We want you to feel comfortable. We want this to be a safe place for you. So, if you have a question, please put it in the chat or text that number. And also, if you know somebody that's needing service, they can reach out to her. If y'all have been listening to us on Therapy Tuesdays and you say, I like Janae, I like what Lifespire Counseling Services is about. I want her, somebody on the team, whatever it is, I need some help. There's the website. You can also go to her, but she has given us resources to be successful and healthy. One of the questions, though, Janae, is why is the betrayal of loss so hard to combat? And well, I'll let you answer that, and we'll go deeper.
Mhm. I think it's very similar to grief, right? So when you're dealing with grief, they say suffering is the gap between the life you want and the life you got, right? And when you're dealing with a grief and someone passes, the suffering is between the life you got and the life you want. And when there's a betrayal, you already have this expectation of the dynamic of the relationship that you have, but then there's the one that you got with the betrayal. And it really is that psychodynamic I was talking about. It's like uh the experience of being able to trust this person and feel secure with them, fist fighting with the actual experience of, wait a minute, they betrayed me. I can't trust them. And it takes our brains a while to catch up with reality. Similar to that first question that was asked. Why do I immediately want to apologize for somebody else hurting me? Well, it's your brain and body trying to make sense of it. And we survival is wired in the brain. We will cleave to what we determine to be secure. We will cleave to that. And when we have to instantaneously detach from that, things get crazy. Things go, it just goes nuts. So it really is a psychodynamic and it is a process. So betrayal and grief are like step siblings. Very similar.
And to piggyback on that, I think, on the biblical standpoint, I can really associate, Peter with that. When he betrayed Jesus and he was just afterwards, he left, he went back to fishing because of that pain, that loss of, hey, him coming to himself that I betrayed the person I said I wouldn't. And, at times we go in a cave within, we're going about our day, but inside, we're broken by that. And so the next question I got, which is how do I recover from the pain that I caused?
Mm. I guess it's self forgiveness, right? Self loving kindness. The same loving kindness and compassion and forgiveness I'm talking about toward other people, we got to turn it toward ourselves. And one of the recovery slides, I talked about just focusing on the self care, being self centered. That approach for recovery isn't just for the person who was betrayed. A lot of healing goes back to the self. A lot of times we find ourselves getting lost in general, not just with relationships, because we're looking at the external world. Rarely do we look at the internal parts of us, our thoughts, our urges, our bodily sensations, our emotions, our behaviors even come from inside out. We got to start looking at some of those things when we're dealing with healing in general. So, of course, I would betray someone if I've never had therapy. I got unpacked childhood trauma. I don't even understand who I am. I don't even understand my values. It was easy for me to get encouraged or swayed outside of that because I lost my sense of self when I got into this relationship. In fact, even before the relationship, I didn't have a sense of self. So it really goes back to just being know thyself so you can heal thyself, but know thyself so you can prevent thyself from suffering. So it all goes hand in hand.
Okay. Ooh, this is a deep one here. I'm gonna let you have this one. How do I heal when the church hurt me?
How do I heal? Ooh, church grief. Okay. Well, I I think that this it still aligns with everything that I've taught today. Make sense of the loss. A lot of times church don't hurt us, we hurt ourselves by having the expectation that people in church are perfect.
Mm,
I think we need to get real about people in church. People in church are people, and people are a combination of good, bad, and ugly. But what ends up happening because of propaganda and sensationalism, there's this idea that people in church are perfect and without fault. And then we get the psychodynamic of the idea that people are perfect in church fighting with the very imperfect people that hurt us. So we got to get real about people in church just being people. And once you internalize that and radically accept that, you remove the expectations and you start to adjust how you see people in church and what you expect them to do. So that way you're not hurt because your expectations didn't get me. And I hope that whoever asked that question um, feels like they got what they needed from my response.
okay. Um, Another question. How do I love when my father didn't love me?
Ooh, mm. How do I love when my father didn't love me? Well, I don't really know how to answer that because that's coming from a very personal experience. I'll try to generalize it as best as possible. How do you love? How do you put love out when love wasn't put in? I think the first step is be aware. I think whoever wrote that question, you're already on the right path. You are aware that nothing was deposited in. So you may have some challenges and kinks with putting something out. So with you being aware of that, know thyself so you can heal thyself. Let's break that down further. So when you know yourself, that means you understand what's happening. And that happening is information. What are you going to do wisely with the information that you know that nothing was put in, but you got to put something out? I think you really need to process how that has impacted your life. Are you resisting love? Um, do you love with a fearful avoidant attachment style? And fearful avoidant attachment style is where you want love desperately, but you push everybody away. Like, how does that show up for you? And however that shows up for you, you got to work 10 times harder to combat that. That means you need to be aware of when you pushing and pulling people away. You need to possibly get into some therapy and understand how you choose to define how love looks like coming out of you and not allow society to tell you how it looks. I think forgiveness will also be a good tool. I'm just going to assume that maybe a part of you are not living with forgiveness. And I'm going to say forgiveness with the stories you tell yourself, with the awareness, with getting a therapist, with doing the intentional baby step work to make sure that that doesn't impact your life in a negative way is going to set you up on the path of healing and loving other people unconditionally and healthily, no matter what wasn't put inside of you.
Okay. Ooh. All right. How can I forgive the love that was taken from me?
How can I forgive the love that was taken away from me? So I'm going to assume that this was someone who loved hard and the person took it, act like it was good, but didn't return it.
I'm assuming so. Of course, that was how the question was written. So I want to say it exactly how I got it.
Okay. If
uh,
that person can clarify, I would love that, but I'm going to just take it. So unrequited love is what I hear. That's when you love someone and they don't love you back. That is heartbreaking. That is loss too. Um, think there are a few songs that talk about unrequited love. And you got to sit in that pain. There's a lesson in that pain. What is your pain message? What are you learning from when you love someone and they don't love you back? I remember being young, and I remember having this thing. I would rather live with regret than no, I'm sorry. I would not rather live with regret. I would rather live with denial than regret, or rejection than regret. So anytime I found myself wanting to be in a relationship, I would shoot my shot, as people say. So I got it. Sometimes it was unrequited, it was not returned. Sometimes, but that's the risk that we take, and that's what I was talking about. There is no such thing as loving without loss. If you're going to put yourself out there, you have to accept that there's a potential that it will not be returned to you. Not saying that it won't hurt, it will hurt, but accept that it will happen. But when it hurts, how do you take care of yourself? What are you doing? Are you telling yourself those negative stories that your emotions are telling you? Are you trying to make sense of it? Are you reframing it in a way where you can kind of massage out the self blame and the blame of others? Are you dealing with it? Are you practicing healthy closure from that? So, as long as you're doing some of the things that I taught, it's funny how no matter what question you ask, it's circling back to the same thing. You got to be wise when you're dealing with pain and loss. It's never going to change. Since pain and loss is never going anywhere, the same solution around pain and loss is there. You got to reframe it. You have to forgive. You might need some support. You got to sit in that pain. Remember, I said, don't treat pain like a disease. Don't treat it like it's something that needs to be cured. It is a part of life, something we have to do.
Okay. Here's another one. It says, "How do I forgive my spouse or partner for dying on me without saying goodbye?"
Ooh, reframe that story, because the story I hear there is you left me on purpose. That's the internal thought that's coming up when I hear that. You left me on purpose. That's that sadness talking. That's the emotional state of mind. But when you get to a place, whoever this is, if you're still grieving right now, trying to pull yourself to a wisdom place isn't gonna be great. We just gotta get you to sit in that grief and kind of just allow yourself to move slowly toward acceptance. But when you get ready to start challenging that internal thought that this person left you on purpose, um, reframe it. We all have to die. I just wasn't prepared for this, as opposed to he left me on purpose. And how do I deal with this? It was unexpected. People die unexpectedly all the time. But even though this is something that we experience all the time, we don't prepare ourselves for it all the time. Because sometimes when we attach to people through love, we are so connected to them, our brains can never fathom what it would be like to live without them, even though that's a possibility.
Okay. And last one. How do I grieve love of something that died but still living?
That sounds like falling out of love, but you're still there. Woo!
Yeah. Come on, you got it.
Say that again for me, because I want to make look. I'm trying to make sure I don't put my own stuff. So say that one again for me. I want to make sure I get the heart of it.
Okay. How do you grieve something that died but still living?
Hmm. How do you accept the loss of something that's no longer active in your life, but it's still around? And I'm gonna tell you that's hard, because when you talk about that chronic pain, that pain that on the inside, that psychological pain that never goes away. Remember, I said with a memory or a smell, it resurfaces. So I would imagine every time this person has to see this situation that's dead connected to this person, that pain resurfaces. And remember, I said that's why you got to grow around it. So you're growing around it. It's never going to go away. As you grow around the pain, it gets less intense and it doesn't hurt you anymore. So my hope is that you are growing around your pain and you made sense of that relationship. Maybe you say things like, it hurt to not be in that situation anymore because I did love that person, or I was attached to that person in some capacity. But now I know that this person didn't align with my values. So I would rather live a life where I'm reminded of the pain of the loss of the relationship every now and then, but honor myself by making sure that my behavior aligns with my values. So that way I don't find myself unnecessarily attaching people for the sake of being in a relationship, but now I'm actually attaching to people with a purpose to align my life with my values. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah. And the last one, and if you all have a question, please put it in the chat. We appreciate you. If you found anything valuable tonight, like it, share it, comment, share it to your friends, send it out, because ultimately this is for you. You know, we love what we do. We want you to be better throughout your day, throughout your life. How can you live in the kingdom if you're bound on the inside? So we want you to be free. So please like, share, comment, whatever it is, put this out there. So this question, ew, this is heavy. It says, how
Y'all
do I
throwing them at
my
me tonight.
children?
Hold
Now,
on, let me get my water.
okay, well get your water because you're gonna need a sip on this one. Look, I took an internal sip when I read it. It
Hmm.
says, how do I love my children when the love that I seen from my parents and received from my parents was unhealthy? So when I look at my children, I'm angry and it's hard to love them.
Ooh, so you're resenting your children because you weren't loved as a child. That sounds like some childhood trauma that definitely needs to be processed. But I want to highlight the beauty in what you said. I saw something beautiful there, and that's one thing. My job is to listen to for solutions and not magnify the problem. The beautiful thing is the awareness that I hear there. This person said, "I can see, I can see it happening. I can see that I didn't get the love, and that I'm starting to resent my children." So I always say this: when you can see a problem, then you already have access to the solution. So if you can see how it is manifesting on your children, then what active steps are you going to take to create a stop sign for that? To say this stops here. Because what's going to, remember I said, when you don't lean into pain and process it, you transfer it. So if you don't deal with it, guess who else is going to see a parent that doesn't show love right? Those children. And are we just going to keep with the transgenerational cycle of resentment toward our child or withholding healthy love from our children? So you got to make a decision that that pattern is going to stop with you and get the support you need to process that childhood trauma, repackage it so that way you can deliver it in a way where your children can know what it's like to be unconditionally loved by their parent.
Okay. Now this one was good, so I gotta ask it. It says, how how do I love somebody that doesn't understand that I need love?
Ah, how do what's the first part again?
How do I love
Hmm.
somebody that doesn't understand how I need love?
Okay, how do I love someone that doesn't understand how I need to love be loved? I see that a lot with my couples. And at the core of everything is acceptance. I teach my couples that a lot of times you think you're going to come in couples therapy and you're going to get me to help you change your partner. But really, what you need to work toward is acceptance. Remember, I said at the core of love is unconditional positive regard, as absolute support and acceptance of a person. This is what I also recommend. Make sure you properly vet the people that you're dating before you get to the point of love and marriage. Dating is supposed to be like a job interview. You got to make sure these people that you're in relationship with or you want to be in relationship with have the skills to do the job. So you really need to know yourself before you fall in love and before you start getting into relationships. And of course, hindsight is 2020. So if you find yourself in a relationship and you didn't vet them properly, now you got to go play cleanup. And here's the thing, you got to be real with yourself because we can't change people. If you know you need to be loved in a certain way and your partner is unwilling to do that or unable, because we don't want to judge them, maybe they don't have the skills to love you the way you need to be loved. You always have to assess, well, what can I change? Accept what you cannot change, but change what you can. You can accept people because you can't change them, but you can always leave the relationship. You can always suggest couples counseling. You can always adjust your perspectives. A lot of times in relationship, we only focus outward. We want everybody else around us to change, but we're the ones that need to change. I say honor yourself. If that relationship does not check your boxes, you're gonna stay miserable or you're gonna leave. And I'm not suggesting that you should leave, but I'm just reminding you that that is an option along with those other things that I shared.
Okay. All right. And our last question. This one says, "How do you process trauma that comes from a parent that divide you and your kids?"
Mm, a boundary. It sounds like your value, because you wouldn't have asked this question is you being undivided with your children wasn't a value. I can see that there's a value for you to be connected with your children. And if that is the boundary, that means anything that doesn't support connectivity with your children needs to be cut out like a cancer. That's just my quick observation of that. And I know it's hard to cut a parent off, but I'm not suggesting cut them off, don't love them. But how can you readjust the dynamic of your relationship where that parent no longer value of wanting to connect with your children?
Okay. A second part of that question, it says, like one parent keeps coming between you and your kids and won't own it, but leads them to believe you are the problem.
Mm. So that parent won't own that they are the problem. Okay, because you can't make that parent own it, that part. So we got to accept that that person might just be very, I don't want to judge them, but that person is unable to see what's happening according to your perspective. So you can't make a person see a problem from your perspective. You can only hope that they care about you enough that they're willing to understand. And once you understand that they may not be willing to understand, you have to let that go, or it's just going to stress you out more. And then the second part, so they're unwilling to see that they are coming between you and the children, and the children are now believing their side of what's happening, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, just like uh this person is doing whatever they're doing to get the children to believe, never forget your power. Don't forget your interpersonal effectiveness. You can have a conversation with the children just like that grandparent is. Hey, this is what's happening. This is my side. And you can also still, the children are allowed to believe what they want to believe. But my recommendation is to set a boundary. Don't forget your power to use interpersonal effectiveness and education with your children, and continue to honor your values. And there was one thing in my presentation where I said, um, this has to be ongoing. Like you can't, as long as this parent continues to violate your boundaries and you don't set the boundary to push them aside, you're going to have to continue to water and nurture that relationship with your children. It's going to be ongoing, constant education, constant, I guess, validating your experience with them, constantly reinforcing your experience with them, constantly talking to them, constantly educating them about what's happening. Well, grandma or grandpa is dividing us, and that's not what I value. I want us to be together. So as long as you teach and preach togetherness, and be consistent, I think that it will get better.
Okay. And this last one, because I feel like it can be relevant for a lot of people. How can I fall back in love with a partner that has been absent due to being away?
Hmm. Effort. You know, your goals require your efforts. What you want to happen requires you to take some conscious steps. So, what are you doing to rebuild connection? Because connection isn't going to be rebuilt just because you want it. Are you having date nights? Are you in therapy? Are you being vulnerable? Are you showing this person your wounds? Are you doing some of those healthy relationship things? Open, honest communication. Are you talking about your fears with your partner? Are you telling them, hey, look, I'm afraid of the disconnection we have right now. I haven't seen you in a while. And I want to rebuild. Are you setting goals with this partner? Can we have nightly conversations where we're rebuilding trust? Can we talk about what your experiences have been since you've been away? Can I talk about what my experiences have been since you've been away? Um, what would you do if you were rebuilding any relationship? You spend time with them. You practice reciprocity, respect. You accept them for who they are without trying to change them. Try not to focus so much on the disconnection because that's the problem, but focus on the reconnection. You want to focus on the solution. And that's what happens. We get so nervous that we're going to lose people. We frantically only highlight the problem, but we got to start focusing more on the solution.
Okay. And last part for the question with the children. It says, how can I reconnect? How can I connect when the kids are no longer talking to me due to the things that that grandparent or that parent of that person?
Oh, I'm assuming it's adult children because I'm
Correct.
thinking small children because, well, you can't change people. You gotta accept it. Once and it hurts. I have adult clients who have fallen out with their children, and it's a pain like no other. It is a loss. You gotta lean into that pain, and I think that pain probably is communicating. You really love your children and you want to remain in connection with them. All you can do is put an effort, accept what you cannot change, but change what you can. How can you stay in connection with them in informal ways? I have suggested with my adult clients who have adult children that they're estranged from to write letters and keep them in like a box or vault, and they can read them letter. So you sometimes you got to find another place to put that love. Sometimes they mail cards on birthday and anniversaries. Let me tell you, resentment is not going to stop love from being expressed. Like you can still express your love in informal ways. You may not be able to touch them or talk to them, but still send text messages on birthdays, still mail cards. If that is a value of yours now, if that isn't a value of yours, and you just want to maybe just try one last time and leave the ball in their court, that's also another option. You've tried the interpersonal effectiveness. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. Maybe you decide I want to back off and kind of let them come to their own terms. But in the meantime, make sure you find a safe space to process the pain of losing adult children who don't want to talk to you because that hurts.
Okay. Well, thank you, Janae. Thanks for all that knowledge, the tools, the wisdom that you have poured tonight. As I said to you all, if you got a question, text the number on the screen, 386-400-3100. And if you're looking for a counselor, therapist, or need someone to talk to, Janae's agency can help you or provide, depending on, their booking. But please reach out if that is something you need. And also, if you find out about their agency, from Therapy Tuesday, when you text that number, say, hey, I need a counselor, find out from Therapy Tuesday so that she knows, where you're coming from, how you got recommended to them. So, Janae, we appreciate you. If y'all can give Janae some love, some fire, some hand claps, some hearts for all the moms. For if you got any drop of value tonight, please show your gratitude, your expression to her. And we just appreciate you, Janae. Thank you so much. We're excited about your books and everything that you're doing. Go ahead, because it looked like you got something to say.
No, I'm just thankful to be here. I'm about to thank the people for believing in me and trusting in me and listening to me and asking me all the questions. Look, I had to make sure y'all really made me go into my bag tonight. But I just hope, honestly, I really hope that what I shared was valuable and can be useful and that you got what you needed.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think it was amazing. Thank you once again. So we look forward to next month version of Therapy Tuesday. So Janae, thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure.
So as you all know, we can't end without a prayer. I pray that you was blessed on, and I pray that something touched your heart. If you want to sow into the ministry, sow in Janae. We have our giving that you can give to our Cash App, Givelify, credit debit card, or if you want to Venmo to the ministry, you can do it at lfrchurchint@gmail.com. Or if you want to Venmo, Love and Faith Restoration Church International. We appreciate you. This is for you. Janae takes her time out each and every month to come and give us this knowledge. She doesn't have a certain charge that she gives us, but I like to be a blessing to her because her time is valuable. And we appreciate all that she's doing and what God is doing here at Love and Faith. It's about building the kingdom. It's about the love that we have. It's about sharing that love and showing that love. That love is an action. So what are we putting in action? What are the steps that we're taking? So all of this is for you. You may not be a part of this ministry, but you are a part of this ministry. I always tell people, you don't have to call me pastor for me to be a tool for you. So this is to help build the kingdom, to build the people. It's not about who says I'm attached to you, but it's about how can your heart be whole. Like I said, we want you to bring your shattered pieces here to when you leave, you can start getting them to a place of wholeness. You know, the kingdom, the Bible tells us we are all many members of one body. So how can I do my part to help the body of Christ? Because it's time for us to get to kingdom things. So I appreciate you for coming out. I appreciate your love, your support, your giving, and just again supporting us for the past 2 years. So before we go, let me pray. Father, we just thank you for tonight. We thank you for all that Janae poured out. Father, we ask that you just pour back into her, God, 100-fold. Father, everybody that's under the sound of my voice that may go back and watch the replay, touch them right now. All those that are dealing with a broken heart, a grieving heart, a hurting heart. Father, we know that you are the potter and we're the clay. So, Father, mend those hearts together. Father, just surround them right now in the mighty name of Jesus. Encamp your love and your angels around them, God. Those that are dealing with grief, those that are dealing with heartbreak, those that are dealing with divorce, separation, God, they wanted some things to work and it didn't. God, I just ask that you step in right now in a mighty way. God, you know what they need. Touch their minds, touch their hearts. Father, touch their emotions. God, because you care about it. God, we just thank you for all that you're doing in the lives of your people and the lives of your sons and daughters. Father, we thank you for a supernatural healing on tonight. Father, we thank you right now in the mighty name of Jesus for total healing. In Jesus Christ's mighty name. Amen, 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 amen. We love you. We love you. We love you. God bless you. If you need us, we are here. We are just blessed that, this was a month of love, a month of grief. For me, it was heavy. I lost my grandmother this month. My apostle's birthday was this month, but they're not here. And so one thing about that love is what are you going to do with the how do you deal with it? How do you understand it? And that's what this segment was about. How do you deal with the different aspects of love and get through? The Bible talks about love in so many ways, and I'm not going to keep us and preach on that, but this is for us to not only take the biblical principles, but also take the psychological, the mental principles, the things that we can make applicable to being better. So we love you. If you need us, we're praying for you. Thursday, we'll be having service. So join us Thursday night for Digging Deeper Thursdays. I love you. I love you. I love you. God bless you. Until next time, be blessed. Have a great night.